We have had fairly interesting conversations around data, consumer insights, channel specifications. We'll close today speaking about two very important pieces, actually. First is the fact that the world runs on a certain set of data, and I don't literally mean in terms of geo-connectivity, hai ya nahi hai, but the data that brands possess that help brands take decisions and sort of monetize whatever they do. And second part, which is there's a deluge of dirty data in this world, and we need quality of data to come into businesses. We are soon landing in a cookieless world. This cookieless world is going to translate into brands spending a lot of money and putting a lot of effort behind getting first-party data. The first-party data right now sits mostly within walled gardens, as all of us know. There has to be a way where we can bring in a certain methodology towards getting better quality data that will help businesses start scaling up in a way where it just becomes profitable because of the quality of the kind of customer who walks in. To speak more about that, we have Raghav Anand with us. Raghav is a partner and sector leader at EY. Raghav, over to you.
Right. Am I audible? Okay, great. Okay, I don't think it works for any generation to stand between you guys and a party and drinks for sure. But I'll try and make this last session as interesting as possible. What we're going to talk about today is really how do we, most of us would wish we had a lot more insights and first-party data than we are getting from our usual social media platforms and all the campaigns that we are running. We're going to today talk about how we can use new media, and I'll define what new media is as a set of components, and also use some innovative AI and data metrics to derive more first-party data for ourselves, or at least if not first-party data, derive more insights for ourselves. And that's what I'll touch upon in the next 15-20 minutes. And really, also just looking through the audience just to see everybody, and like you said, the light is on me. How many of you guys would have experimented, and if I can have a show of hands, on marketing on new media? And what I mean by new media is either using newer media channels like FAST, CTV, and so on and so forth, or in newer forms of engagement like gaming and interactivity. If I can have a quick show of hands, how many of you people would have really experimented on marketing on the new media channels? I can see one hand, I can see two of them there. So I think I'm speaking to the right audience then, so I'm not preaching to the choir from that perspective. What we are seeing today is the emergence of a host of media channels which goes beyond obviously the traditional media of TV and print, but also goes beyond the social media channels we are all used to, whether it is YouTube, Instagram, and so on and so forth. Now, what these new media channels are doing is giving an opportunity for the first time for brands to connect directly with the audience. And that's one set of the story. On the other hand, we are also seeing that the investors are looking at completely different data metrics. I've been speaking to a lot of D2C brands, and in each and every world, if you look, the guys doing quick commerce, bounce rates, cart fill rates, there are an entire new set of metrics, and the investors are saying, you reach this metric, I'll give you the next tranche. Talk about gaming, deal to deposit ratios, withdrawals, there is a host of new set of metrics that the investor is talking about. So in this paradigm, can I get, for my new set of metrics, can I get more insights into the consumer? Can I connect and have first-party data using new media? And that's what we're going to talk about today. And if I were to do that, I will be supercharging my data story because 52% of the total ad spends is today on digital and new media. And we are also seeing that very large-scale events, whether it's sports or it's a differential live event, is really driving the consideration set for a lot of audience. But more importantly, if I use some of these media right, I can engage with the audience much, much better than I would in a different scenario. And what we have found after running, I know, a few tens of campaigns on these media is that the ROAS is very, very high. It's almost 60% when we do some of these media items. So how do we do that? And in some of the cases, and I'll probably talk to you about 3 or 4 cases, live cases where this has worked, some of them new and old, where we've been able to drive almost 150% ROI, and there are a host of improvement that has happened because I have data, I can do predictive analytics, and thereby I can improve the entire performance from that perspective. So how does this work? One of the real interesting case study which kicked off this entire thing was back in the day, Jio, when it launched, they said, guys, we need about 5 million guys on what was Jio Chat at that point in time, right? So if you were to do 5 million acquisitions in that day, it was about $5 to $8 acquisition. You'd end up spending some 25, 30 million, and you would do the normal marketing ways. And you would probably sort of end that in about an 8 months to a 1 year timeline. But then the brief to us was to do it very differently because we are not working like a normal agency. So what we did is we took the brand, we got connected them connected with another client of ours, which was Sony, and they were running KBC. We developed a small game along with partners, and that game was largely about if you're sitting at home, you could answer any question on KBC, and the question will vanish 2 seconds before the contestant answers in the studio. So we made the game, and there were about 350K worth of prizes. You can't give cash to the guys who are playing from home. What we saw was just in 6 episodes flat, we had 30 million guys who had downloaded, played, and shared their nth data, including their alternate address, alternate phone number, and to validate themselves an identity, whether it's Aadhaar or PAN from that perspective. That was the fastest acquisition that happened on a data channel at that point in time. And the real differentiator was that where we would have typically spent for 30 million, even at a $5 old-time CAC, you would have spent about $150 million. This was all done within about 750K. So that was the fastest acquisition that was possible. And why it was possible is because we took gaming and interactivity, fused it with traditional media, and gave the audience a real incentive to go out there and play. And that resulted, as you can see, in then a lot of others coming back, and we were asked to do the same thing for IPL. And IPL, we ran the same kind of interactivity. And within a month, we had 101 million people and their nth data as first-party data with us. Now, if I were to, at that point in time, tell to any brand that under $1 million, you could get 100 million first-party data, that would have been a steal, right? And that's exactly what happened. And in terms of even the total interactions that happened with that data or with a daily average, there was a usual very high scenario. Now, that's when we started thinking and saying, now, should brands be investing in all of this? How do we enable this for a lot more brands? So an entire platform was built. There were 3 challenges that the Jio faced at that point in time. The first challenge was that, okay, I have acquired about 100 million customers. Now, if I start another campaign, another interactivity, do I have to start from 0 or can I go from 100 million plus? That was the first challenge they had. The second challenge is to develop these interactivities, usually at that point in time took about 3 to 4 months. And they would want to engage the customer and do something every 2 weeks. So how do I do that? And the third problem they had is to then say that I'm basically a network, so can I bring more brands into this, right? So what we did was we built a platform. We tied up with some gaming companies, got about 800 preset APIs into it, hosted it on a cloud, and essentially gave it as a SaaS platform. What that did is you could develop any game within 2 weeks flat. You just drag and drop and develop a game within 2 weeks as against 4 months. And it would cost you 1/10 to develop. And these are not just spin the wheel kind of games, and these are serious games, right? Micro games, but serious games. The second thing we did is connect it all into a CDP so that all the data comes back as first party data for you. And it's the data you can engage with, you can do predictive analysis on. And then we started connecting that back into some ad networks to say other brands could also participate. So one of the chocolate brands participated with them and created an entire campaign where every time you open a chocolate wrapper, there is a gratification in terms of data that comes out from Jio. So that for us kickstarted this entire initiative of saying, can I use new media to acquire first party data? And that led to several other differential things that we did. One of the things that happened is there was a sports app, different from the one here. They had a unique problem. They said, look, they were into basketball. They wanted to have customers in India download that app and play along and so on and so forth. But they had about 550, 600K Facebook followers, and that's all that they had. Now, the challenge was to sort of pick out specific people who would be looking at basketball and then acquire them without spraying tons of money, right? And the usual mediums and the ROIs did not work for them, right? So what we did is we worked with certain AI companies, fused a lot of data sets together, and there were about 6-7 data sets and IFA and everything else fused together. And we looked at a lot of cohorts, including guys who wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, but that's where the game live comes from US. Guys who are sporting basketball, guys who are connecting with certain kind of music and all of that. And came down to about 750K people, 7.5 million people who could be targeted. We spread them on an India map because we had device level data. And then we went back to the brand and said, most of your consumers will come from 2 states, Meghalaya and Mizoram. And they said, here is the door, you could as well. If you don't want us to do the honors, you can walk out because our research says it is top 8 cities and SCCA and all of that. Then we said, why don't you check it? So they went back, checked with their merchandising partner, Jabong, and they realized that Meghalaya was first and Mizoram was second in terms of sales. And then said, guys, you are on to something, run the campaign. So we executed the campaign, and we had about 550K guys downloading, registering, and sharing data with the app in about like 3 months, right? And the cost of acquisition of that was about 70% lesser than what they would do on normal social media channels and beyond, and far lesser than what they would do if they had done traditional media. So here again, the power of AI along with the power of new media was leveraged for a first party customer acquisition. And that led us on to something even more interesting. What happened was one of the personal care brands, a very niche product, doing about 3,000 rupees plus kind of a, per unit price, was looking at saying, I want to just target certain households within India. And I don't want to sort of go out and put an entire campaign there. I want to really be able to mark out certain places and then just do the campaigns there. There, based on the previous work done, we extended the data partnerships, and today we have stitched together 60 different data sources using AI into one platform where there are almost 95 crore household data is there. 20,000 plus pin codes, right up to the building level, talking not just about what kind of consumer durables they have, but about their credit card spends, what do they invest in, where have they been spending money, enough amount of data at a building level fused together with pin codes, so you can really sharply target. So leveraging that, they started looking at a campaign which was clearly personalized, and it was targeted specifically to certain households. And that campaign then resulted in an overall doubling of the revenue and almost 20% reduction in the marketing spend from that perspective, because they could pinpoint and they could target from that perspective. However, while we were doing all of this, the brands started to realize that, look, now I have a far more effective way of doing my own marketing and getting first party data. So I can retarget those guys, I can engage with them, I can build on the entire thing. And also I could start creating my own media. Previously, when I started out doing this, and I've spent about across 4 continents, worked with almost all the top 100 companies and more than top 500 advertising companies. Previously, it used to take about 400 crores to build a TV channel. Right? Today, under a crore, you could run channel on the same connected TV, right, for almost a year. So brands started asking us, why can't I own the media? And own media was just not about what I post on Instagram or what I do out there. Can I really go into the connected TV? Can I really go into high-end devices and start building my own owned media? And that's where that entire effort was started, where today what we are doing is working with production houses, working with film guys, working with brands, and working with them to say, how can you be present on 20 different platforms with your own channels? It could be FAST, it could be associated CTV app, it could be on cable. If you looked at any, I don't know how many people looked at Schedule 10, which is now allowed IPTV to come about, and there will be about, in the next few years, you'll have 3,000 channels to 4,000 channels. If you've been in any of the Middle Eastern places, they just plug in an IPTV box and they have 3,000, 4,000 channels. And that's the ecosystem we are going to start looking at in the next 3 to 4 years. So in that scenario, I can run a channel for a few crores and be on the same CTV on any of those ecosystems. I could differentially also be running content on all the QSR platforms and the e-commerce platforms. They are also today opening up to more and more content coming onto them, and there are a lot of conversations we are having. You could also be running channels at a cable TV level only for the local ecosystem. You could be running a channel for 5 kilometers radius or a 500 kilometers radius. So all those opportunities are there. So we said, why don't we centrally make a setup which could, now if you're a brand and you want to talk about overall about nutrition and then drive your healthy snacks kind of a product, or you want to talk about wellness and then drive all your hygiene products, there are a host and ways of actually owning up this media. And it can be done very, very cost effectively. The difference between if you do your own media and you spending on some of the social media platforms or on traditional media could be a huge difference of anywhere between 40% lesser to close to about 65, 70% lesser. And in most cases, it also gives you an opportunity either to get first party data, like if you're running CTV apps, or at least get a lot more insights on what the customer is watching, what is he spending on, how is he engaging, feedback from him, what are his bounce rate, what cards are he looking at, and then be able to customize it for you. And what we have seen is, as the new media platforms are growing, more and more brands are saying, can I go out there and create my own media? So these are some of the things that we are leveraging, and the results are more than astounding. May not be in every case, but in most brands we are working with, in some of them we have been able to drive 40, 50%, some of them even up to 75% CAC reduction than what they would do on a TV or any other place. We've had engagements which were far, far higher. In some of the gamification things we have done, the engagements have been about 150% plus. And because you have more access to data, you could convert that consumer much, much better and drive an overall return on ad spends, which is far, far higher than what you would spend on a traditional marketing mechanism. Are these without challenges? Yes, of course, there are challenges. For individual brands to do, it sometimes might be overwhelming, which is why I think a lot of enablement is today available in terms of SaaS platforms being developed, in terms the managed services being provided, some of which we are doing, some of it a lot of others in the market are doing. So all it requires for the brand to do is to plug and play and then try and get onto a trajectory where I start thinking about saying, how am I using gamification? How am I using interactivity? How am I using CTV? How am I using some of these channels for two things? A, my own owned media, so that I have a direct connect to the consumer, and two, as mechanisms to derive first-party data from the traditional TV channels and others and bring it into my customer data platform and own that customer. So this is some of the interesting things we have seen, and I'm really happy that I'm here among fellow marketers and happy to sort of engage, take some questions. We are also available on the floor beyond this. Some of us are here, and if you want to catch one-on-one, happy to also do that. I wouldn't take too much time between you and the party which is there, but if anybody has questions, happy to sort of take that.
We can also take the questions offline, Raghav.
Yes, thank you. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for the patience.
Thank you so much, Raghav. That was a wonderful presentation. And please accept a small token of our appreciation for taking the time to do this.
Thank you so much. Thank you.